What is going on, everybody? I go by Philly Mike, host of the Philly Talk podcast, and today we got a Sixers round to discuss these playoffs. Round one, we got the Raptors. We are live on 3 channels: Philly Talk podcast, Simone with the sports, and Run It Back Philly. And we got Kayla Santiago. She was on before, and she contributed MVP level. We'll talk about that stuff too. But with that being said, what's your general thoughts on this matchup?
I'm terrified, actually, if I'm going to be completely honest, because I think out of all the teams that I did not want the Raptors, because you think about Nick Nurse and he can completely outcoach Doc Rivers. I know we'll get into that a little bit later. And then you don't have Matisse Thybulle on the road, who is really your only perimeter defender. So I think it's a big worry. I don't think the Sixers are going to lose, but I think it's going to be a really, really tough series that might hurt them physically going into the second round.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I definitely think we can get past the first round, of course. But like you said, that's the biggest thing to me. We have a first round matchup. Like last season, we had the Wizards easy, roll through. This time, we have a first round matchup that's going to take everything out of us. And sadly, everything out of Joel Embiid, who we're going to need for whatever that second round matchup, Eastern Conference. So it's just that we're going to have to empty Embiid's tank in the first round just to get out of the first round. That's what I'm worried about the most, like Embiid's longevity.
No, you're both absolutely right. Joel's going to have to be a superhero. It does, the last couple of years, it felt like we had first round matchups that were easy breezy. We were close to pulling off sweeps, and we would, slack off in one game and lose one or whatever. This is not easy. I just got a stat. The Sixers against the Raptors this season recorded assists on 70% of their field goals, meaning this team, more than any team in the Eastern Conference, absolutely swarms Joel Embiid as soon as he touches the basketball. And that's my fear, because everyone wants to step up. James Harden doesn't look good against Toronto. Mike, can you be positive? Because I was hoping somebody else would be, because I am not right now.
I mean, I think Kayla and Simone were as positive as you can really get. Like, it's going to be a tough battle. Shaquille O'Neal said sweep or gentleman sweep. I mean, I don't know what he was doing last night on TNT, but I mean, he sounded the utmost confidence in the Sixers. My thing is, I agree with you guys. Joel Embiid's going to have to be the superhero. But the way Nick Nurse uses these athletic bodies that the Raptors have, I'm talking about double teams come when the ball's in the air. Joel Embiid don't even got it. So you see other teams send a double team late. Joel Embiid has trouble when he puts the ball on the ground. You don't even get to see that with the Raptors. You're getting double team 18 feet from the basket as the ball's in the air. Matisse is definitely going to cause some problem. I do think, though, 7-game series talking, as you guys said, we've been rolling through the first round so easy. We get to the second round, and we getting beat by we should have never lost to the Hawks. Regardless of how bad Ben Simmons was last year, we were still the better team. Take Ben Simmons and put him a negative, we still should have beat the Hawks. So, if we can get past this tough first round challenge, I think it shows a lot. But as much as we're saying Joel Embiid got to be the superhero, I think the X factor is what Harden are we going to get? I mean, is it James Harden or James Softon? Because I really don't know at this point.
James Harden, yeah, that's my thing. We know, like, there's so many things we know already going into the matchup. We know Doc is going to be terrible at making adjustments. We know we can't rely on the bench. And we know Embiid is going to have an amazing game. It's going to come down to whether James Harden acts like a former MVP or not. It's really going to come down to James Harden. Like, okay, great facilitator, great running the offense. You can set guys up. You can get double-digit assists. But, dude, we brought you to close out games to get buckets. So Embiid doesn't have to drop 45 points in a loss. We got you to help carry some of the offensive load. We had a point guard that wouldn't give us no points, but just facilitate. So what are you doing? Ben Simmons could get assists and lock down somebody. You're not playing defense and you're not getting buckets. So what really are you doing?
Yeah, she's absolutely right. And I think talking about James Harden, but you also have to talk about Tobias Harris too. I think that's a guy who's going to have to step up incredibly. I know nobody likes James Harden in the playoffs, but somebody else is going to have to step up. And as much as we all love Tyrese Maxey, it's not going to be Tyrese Maxey. He's inexperienced. He's young. He might give you a few 30-point games here and there, but he's not going to be consistent. Tobias also has to be that guy. But you talk about James Harden. I mean, he's going to have to play out of his mind in this series. Nobody in the Eastern Conference has an easy first round by any means, because 1 through 8 right now are absolutely insane, plus the play-in. But James has to step up, and if he doesn't, it's going to be a long series.
Yeah, I actually think it has to be Tyrese Maxey. I think it absolutely has to be. You know, I think he has the potential to be that. I think, you know, this coaching staff needs to have more of a plan for him to be a major part of the offense. When he's shooting out of this world percentages and he only has 11 field goal attempts in an entire game, I'm sitting here looking at the stat sheet like, why is this guy not putting up 20 plus field goal attempts in a game where, you know, maybe Tobias Harris is put up 6 or James is 3 for 95 or whatever it is, you know, like I think Maxey might be, as far as the starting lineup, an X factor. And I think if he's not consistent yet, which nobody's, you know, you can't get on him for it. He's in a position that he didn't ask to be in. I just got drafted like last year, bro. Like, you know, he won game 6 for in the Atlanta series last year. And then Doc said, okay, enough of that. Here's George Hill. But you know, I think Maxey has to be a large part of the offense.
Now, I agree. He has to be. But the thing is, will Doc run it for him that way? The same way we've been talking about Doc Rivers not playing the young bench players, right? I think he looks at this offense and he says, okay, we gonna get Joel Embiid going, of course, right? Harden, you're gonna do what you're gonna do. They're gonna run some stuff for Tobias. So I think in the system, in Doc's system, Maxey gets lost. And I think that's where, you know, Maxey's the Mr. Third Quarter. You know why? Because somehow we're struggling and we need that third quarter to be good. And then they look down the lineup and they say, okay, we've been running Embiid. Harden's inefficient. Tobias, you haven't scored since the first quarter. Oh, let's use Maxey then. So I think we have to make it an effort to get Maxey involved, but it's hard for Doc to be like, Maxey, we're going to call your number early, and Harden's looking at him, Tobias looking at him, right? But it is what it is. It is what it is. You see Maxey is, second in the league in 3-point percentage coming out of college. He was 29, went all the way up to 43. He's just done everything you can ask for, and these are big shoes to fill, but he got to be a big part. If Maxey don't play hard, if Maxey don't give us second or third level scoring, then we're in big trouble.
Definitely. So my thing is, I wholeheartedly agree. Tyrese, Tobias have to have big games, but the only reason I'm focusing on James Harden, because James Harden, you're supposed to be the backcourt. You're supposed to be equal to Joel Embiid. Like, those other guys, they're role players. It's amazing if they step up and take over and win us a game. But that's what we expect from Joel and James. We got James, so Joel Embiid can have an okay night and James takes over and carry the load. It's supposed to be an equal. That's why we got James Harden. So that's just why I'm just so frustrated with James, because Embiid should not have to be dropping 40 all the time. He shouldn't have to be playing 38, 39 minutes. He was doing that before we got James. So, like, what has changed? He's still having to play 40 minutes and still carry all the load. So I'm just sick of James Harden, if you can't tell.
Let me ask you guys this real quick. I want to know all your input on this. So, of course, Matisse can't play on the road. So let me ask you, we get home court advantage. Are you going to start Matisse in the whole games and start Danny Green on the away games? Or are you just going to run with Danny Green now for this series? First game, we're at home. Are you starting Danny Green and saying, because we're not going to try to get a rhythm and say we do start to, figure ourselves out. And it's hard because Danny Green's been in and out the lineup. Or are you just going to say we're going to flip-flop to where Matisse can play, or say, listen, what happened with you happened with you. Now you're going to come in the second unit. What is your thoughts on that?
I think Matisse needs to start at home, and here is why. I think there needs to be scoring off the bench, and Matisse
I meant Thibault. If I said Matisse, Matisse Thibault.
You're
right. I'm thinking of Maxey. See, I'm thinking of Maxey.
The words up. Yeah. I think Matisse doesn't bring you that scoring off the bench, and I think that's something that the Sixers needed in that away game with the Raptors. I also think that nobody is going to lock down Van Fleet or Siakam, and Matisse has to be on one of them. And if he doesn't start, those two are going to have a field day to start off the game. And then they're going to triple team Joel Embiid, and the Sixers are going to have a hard time fighting back. It might mess up the rhythm, but I think for those home games that will be played more for the Sixers because they're the higher seed, you need that bench scoring from Danny Green, and you need Matisse to try to lock them down. And then the rotations can be whatever they can be, and whoever goes in at the end of the game, depending on the matchups. But that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I get scared when you talk about the bench, to be honest with you, because I don't know
Me
what
too.
I don't know what the bench is. If you can get the 20, 21, 22 point bench, but sometimes the Sixers bench is just what happened to everybody.
Well, I don't know. So somebody interestingly said today in my comments, maybe not having Matisse, Matisse has been struggling offensively. And we know, like we said, those guys will be open with James getting double teamed, Joel getting triple teamed. And if Matisse isn't knocking down shots, then obviously he's going to be a liability. I don't know. I mean, Danny had a really good game last game against the Raptors. So maybe, he's the hot hand right now. You got to feed the hot hand. He got them Raptors ties. Maybe he's going to play good against the Raptors. It's going to be messy, like you said, Mike, because we're not going to be able to keep a rhythm going. It's going to be hard to keep a rhythm going. So that is concerning.
I don't know, Mike. I don't have an answer for this. I didn't think about this question, man. That makes me even more negative than I was to begin with. The Matisse Thybulle not being their thing. But at the same time, like the beginning of the last game, or maybe it was 2 games ago, the 2 Toronto games seemed like they were close together at the end of the season, right? But they don't guard Matisse Thybulle in the half court at all. They don't even look at him. And Toronto, especially Toronto, they're just such a well-coached defensive team. They know, hey, don't guard that guy. Make him shoot it. And so it seemed like from the jump, it was 4-on-5 on some, and that's why the one game he only had 20. The last game that he played, he only had 20 minutes. Because I think Doc realized from the jump, like, it's hard to have this guy in the half court against this defense. Unless he's going to make threes. Once in a blue moon, he's going to make some. But, a lot has to go right. But a lot has to go right with any team that wins a championship or gets all the way there, so.
Yeah, look, I think the East is going to be tight. Like I've been saying, and again, I'm more on the positive side. Not saying like this team has proved to me that they can do the things we're asking them. But what I do like is that Embiid going to be Embiid, and I think the bench is streaky enough to give us the 4 out of 7 games. We're not asking them to be perfect. A 1-game sample size. The Sixers are definitely unknown, especially if we have the lead. But my take on Danny Green is, because Matisse can't play every single game, I'm running with Danny Green in the starting lineup until he proves he can't do it. For the simple fact that I think when you look at Danny Green's game in general, but even more now when he's on his last set of legs, to say, he can only score when the ball is given to him to shoot. No dribble, shoot, corners, wings, transition. And who in the second unit is really setting Danny Green up? Danny Green in the second unit, for some reason, does more dribbling than shooting. So I think in the first unit, when you got Harden, who's still passing at an elite level, the thing he's not doing is scoring. We telling Ben Simmons to shoot. I'm almost telling Harden, yo, cut it out for a second now, because his passing is legit, though. He's still, and that's the thing. The defense still looks at Harden and says it's Harden. You still got a guy who steps up to the 3-point line. So his drive and kick to a Harris when he's hot in the first, or a Niang or a Danny Green, it's still valuable. And you can't double Joel Embiid, or he at least stretches the defense out. You got people on the perimeter. I just think Danny Green, on his last leg, will be better off in the starting lineup. I'm not saying that, again, we're limited options. It's not like I'm picking Danny Green out of a lineup like, oh, I want him on my team. We got Furkan and other guys on this roster that we can't even play. But to Kayla's point real quick, Matisse, definitely, like, last game we played the Raptors, I think as much as we couldn't get a bucket and Harden was horrendous in the fourth, our defense was horrendous. Everybody was scoring. So I think in that scenario, Doc, we got to ask him to say, you know what, we started Danny Green. He's hot. But right now we need defense. We got to play Matisse. I think it's still situational, but I think I would run. Look, the NBA is going to an offensive heavy. I mean, great offense beats great defense at this point. So I'm going to go out there with the heaviest hitters. And when Embiid and Harden and the starters, which Matisse is part of that, we're in the 99th percentile of total offense when the starting 5's out there. Hopefully they all can play 40 plus minutes.
Yeah, well, Joel Embiid's going to have to play like the whole entire game because the plus minus is absolutely atrocious. Another reason why he should be considered for MVP, but that's besides the point. It's just crazy to think that the bench coming in, the Sixers could have a 15-point lead, and as soon as he leaves the floor, all of a sudden they could be up by one. To your point in talking about the bench real quick, Shake Milton needs to step up like he has been when all the starters are out. He's going to be a big factor. Matisse is going to have to step up, obviously, but when they're away, Georges Niang's going to have to step up. There's a lot of people that are going to have bigger factors. And then that's where the coaching comes in with Doc Rivers, because if I see DeAndre Jordan on my screen once again, I might turn the game off because I can't do it no more.
It's
He's
Paul
doing it.
Millsap
He's
for
doing
me.
it. Go ahead, Simone. He's doing
I said
it.
it's seeing Paul Millsap on my screen in 2022.
Oh my God. Yeah, that too.
Well, let me ask you guys. Doc Rivers' comments, right? He tried to dumb it down for us because I guess we needed him to talk slowly so we could understand it.
I want to. I can't.
Yeah, that's the worst thing. Yeah, like the last time he tried to dumb it down to us, he said, why would I bench Ben Simmons in the fourth? Very next game, he did what he said we were dumb for asking, but let's see if he does that. He did come out and say straight up, smaller fives we're going to play, and he was backed into this corner. Smaller fives we're going to play Paul Reed, bigger fives we're going to play DJ. Well, guess what? They're going to start who? They're going to start who is it going to be? It's not Sakiyama. Who are they going to start? Yeah,
No,
it might be Pascal.
Five, Siakam. Does he play the five?
They haven't played the five sometimes. Yeah.
And then they bring in Chris Boucher, however you say his name, and he's only 6'9". So the Raptors are a team that's going to go small. Do you see him staying to these words that he just said 24 hours ago and say, okay, the Raptors are going to play small, we're going to play Paul Reed? Or do you see him trying to fit DJ in the second unit?
I'll believe it when I see it.
Right.
I'm going to be honest with you. I think the biggest thing with Paul Reed that is to worry about is the foul trouble, because if he gets into foul trouble, then you have to go with a completely different situation. And then Joel Embiid really has no rest, but you have to play b-ball Paul in this situation. DeAndre Jordan doesn't even try, and you can't have that. He is a big guy out there and should be getting every single rebound, but you just see him looking at the ball and watching it go to the opposing team. B-ball Paul has to play. I think that he's earned it. I think he's played pretty decent at the end of this stretch here to end the season. But like I said, I'll believe it when I see it. I don't believe one thing Doc says until it happens on my TV on Saturday night.
DeAndre Jordan does not have the athleticism anymore. Like, this is my telltale when somebody's not athletic anymore. He got one jump in him on a rebound. He can't go back up. He got one jump.
One jump.
That's how you know you old and you done. When you can't go back up, when you can't get back up, you got one jump. If you don't get the rebound that time, you ain't going back up for it.
I think the main thing that Doc has to concentrate on that could make or break us is matching the substitutions. You know what I mean? He's just so he's so notorious for doing whatever's on his paper, regardless of who's on the floor. And then you end up with Paul Millsap guarding Giannis for 8 straight minutes and giving up 17 straight points in the third quarter, or Siakam out there. I didn't look back at who was guarding him in that run that he made the 2 games ago, but he finished the game with a 40-point triple double. You can't. I have a fear that in the third quarter we're going to end up with one of those 90-year-old players trying to stop Pascal Siakam, who can just drive right by those dudes. He's too big, long, quick. A lot of this rests on Doc Rivers' strategy because of the lack of what we have outside of Joel Embiid at the center position. And as far as him playing Paul Reed, I'm sorry to tell you guys, he's not going to do it. He's just not. I've never heard a more condescending coach in my life of watching NBA basketball. I absolutely can't stand the guy. He rubs me the wrong way. And Doc Rivers is consistently like cocky, condescending, and wrong.
Right.
All the time. You did this for an entire season with Ben Simmons. You end up being wrong. We're like, haha, Doc's wrong. And now he's doing it again, telling everybody they're stupid. Nobody knows anything but Doc Rivers. And he's just, I can't
if you
stand the guy.
Challenge Doc, he's so sassy. Like, that's how you know when somebody's wrong, like when you can't take being challenged. And I just don't understand Doc Rivers. Those Celtics days were like 50 years ago. As of late, what have you done? What have you done for me lately? You busted the Clippers. You had the Clippers up 3-1, lost it. Came to Philly, was supposed to be the Ben Simmons whisperer. He gonna figure out what's going on with Ben Simmons. That was his whole shtick when he came here. And what have you done? Lost to the freaking Hawks. I'm saying, like, you just had a terrible playoff loss with the Clippers. Then you came here, had another embarrassing loss. I don't understand him. He's got bad juju. Like I said, look at his family situation. Traded away his son, now traded away his stepson. He had that drama with Paul George. He just got bad juju. Like, that's it.
Send him to the Lakers. Send him to the Lakers.
If the Sixers don't get out of the first round, he's gone, though. Or the second round, excuse me. I hope they get out of the first round. Geez, they have too much talent not to, but he's so defensive all the time. Doc Rivers, annoying.
He keeps a job, though. I want him to be gone, but realistically, is he, though? Like, how did he get that job after blowing it with the Clippers? Like, he's had really good Clippers teams.
Yeah.
Then he came in and got Joel. Like, how did he even get this job? Like, Doc keeps a job.
When he looked at the reporter last night or 2 nights ago, was it last night? I don't even know. But when he looked at that reporter and said, "I've been around a long time."
Yeah.
That's the stuff that's like, okay, we know that. Good.
Cool.
Too long. Go away. That doesn't mean you know what you're doing. Actually, that probably means you got 1 foot out the door.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to Crew with the $2 super chat. Said Tobias is a momentum killer. He still got the Sixers in 7. And then shout out to Where You're Hiding with the $5 super chat. He said, where y'all hiding? Good evening. Can y'all go over how imperative it is to close the fourth quarter? Achilles heel, 6 or 7. What's going on to everybody in the channel on the panel? Yeah, let me ask you. Before we get to closing the games, what do you think the rotation, like if you had to put a number on it, right? Like, or now what you think we should do versus what Doc Rivers does? And just real quick to end that last segment or part, I only believe Paul Reed is going to play is because he just got put on the spot. That's the only reason I think he would do it. And because they're going to be outrunning DJ quickly. So I mean, this is one of them things where, you know, he told us we were stupid for saying that Ben Simmons can't play in the fourth, and in the very next game he did it because at the end of the day, like DJ just said, condescending and wrong. So once he realizes that he can't be confronted with the same question after game 1, especially if it's a loss, he'll lose it. So I think that comment forced him to now play Paul Reed, whether he likes it or not, even though he'll try to take credit for it at the end if everything pays dividends. You know what I mean?
I think ever since that Pistons loss, there's been more game planning and brainstorming by the rest of the coaching staff, maybe that we don't know about, because a lot of things started to change after that Pistons loss, because that was just one of those, like, all right, this one's unacceptable here. You know what I mean? Our entire roster's out here against the Detroit Pistons, and you guys just got embarrassed. And that the very next game, you start to see bench players that didn't get run for 2 months, all of a sudden are back on the floor. And Paul Reed's out there, and this guy's out there, and I'm starting to say, who is Doc Rivers doing this, or are they already kind of like, inching them out the door a little bit? We got Sam Cassell, we got other guys, like, I don't know, but I saw a lot of difference after that Detroit Pistons game, and Doc might be getting overruled a little bit, and he just seems a little angry about it.
I sure hope so. I mean, at this point, you look at it as a job, right? Like when somebody tells you in your job and you're saying, oh, you could do this better, or maybe let's change this. They're your assistant coaches. They're supposed to help you out and do these things. If he's getting angry about that, that's ridiculous, because he can't do everything. We've seen him try to be at the helm and what he can do with the Clippers and the Sixers, and it's not working out right now. The rotations are absolutely awful. As you guys mentioned before, the matchups, if I see Siakam on the floor for 8 minutes and Joel Embiid's not on there, I'm going to absolutely lose my mind. So I think that Doc needs to go to his assistant coaches and be like, what's the best game plan? Because it's not about Doc Rivers. It's about winning a title.
Joel Embiid just needs to self-check into the game. Just override.
Seriously.
Yes.
At that point, like, Embiid is on LeBron level when it comes to the Sixers at this point. Mm-hmm. Embiid, if you feel like you're ready to check back in, Because in that Bucks game, if Giannis is on the floor, why wouldn't Embiid be on the floor? Like, I'm not a coach, but that just sounds like common sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And again, we're talking about the playoffs in a year that we have the talent on the roster to compete with a very close knit East. I'm expecting, especially this series, which is going to be rough. It's going to take a lot of gas out of a guy like Embiid, right? We know conditioning, even though he's been in the best shape of his career this season, you can still see him. He in the fourth quarter, it's sometimes hard to get his bearings because of everything he's asked to do. I think when you look at the turnovers, if he has them, they're in the fourth quarter because there's times where if it ain't Embiid, it's bust. Now Maxey's been filling them shoes a little bit better. We'll see. But when you look at how many minutes these starters got to play, there's no back-to-backs. It's going to be a brutal series, but Embiid's going to have these 42s, 41s, 43s. And then you look at whoever's the backup center is only getting 7-8 minutes. It's a lot to ask, but it's going to have to be there. Do you think how many guys is Doc going to go deep? 8, 9, 10, 11? What is your preference, and what do you think the Sixers will do?
I hope it's only like 9, honestly. I would say 8 or 9. I don't think that he needs to go any deeper than that. You have to expect James Harden, fingers crossed, is fully healthy. Joel can show you that he's going to go out there and play those 42 minutes. I mean, I like guys like Paul Reed. Obviously, he's not probably going to get time. Shake Milton. Obviously, Niang is going to be out there. Thibault if he comes off the bench. But then who else do you really have? I mean, you can filter guys in. You're not going to see Isaiah Joe at all because Doc doesn't like to play him. I really don't want to see Furkan Korkmaz on my screen anymore, to be honest with you guys. So I think a 9-man rotation is what needs to happen. And that's how the playoffs are. You don't really play more than 9, 10 guys, but it's Doc Rivers. So who knows? We could see DeAndre Jordan and Paul Reed on the floor at the same time. Hopefully not. That'd be awful.
But yeah, Niang, we're definitely, we know he can. We know he can do it. We just need Niang to be consistent. Because like you said, Korkmaz hasn't been consistent at all this whole season.
He can't play in the playoffs. The first time he's in the game, I'm thinking, well, we just threw the flag. We just throw the flag.
And he be looking like he really balling. Like if in his face, you would think he was really balling.
Furkan's the most confident, terrible player I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he will be 0 for 50, and he's firing again right when he touches the ball, man. Like I respect it, I really do. Like I'd like to hang out with the guy, but he's not an NBA playoff level of player. I don't want to see Korkmaz. I think you guys are right. You can't really go more than 8, 9. I think you need Shake Milton. I think you need you need that ball handler off the bench to organize things in a half court, because other than that, it's just a bunch of Danny Greens running in circles, and like what's really going to happen besides run the shot clock down and chuck threes at the buzzer. So you need Shake. You need Niang's been huge for us the whole season. I think it's 8. I think you have to play Paul Reed against the Raptors, and I don't have faith that Doc Rivers is going to do it. But the Toronto Raptors, 7 of their 9 rotation players are 6'7" or taller, which is funny because Doc Rivers makes them sound like a small team for some reason. When we play a small team, we play Paul Reed. We're like, what? This is one of the biggest teams in the league. What's this guy saying? He was so wrong in that press conference. But I just Paul Reed, like the arena's chanting B-ball Paul. The whole city knows that this guy should be on the floor, and Doc finally, gets pressured into doing it at the end of the season. I'm rambling. I'm just so mad about that Doc Rivers press conference. Now that I thought about it again, man. You're right. I'll go with 8. I'll go with 8. I think Shake, Niang, and a backup center. Is there somebody that I'm missing? I don't know that should
Matisse when he's allowed to play. Maybe that's the only one. Yeah. Now I agree there. And real quick, you're right though, because he not only did he argue with the media and blah blah blah, you see he wasn't saying it's his decision anymore. He was like, he's trying to include his staff, like we watch basketball. He was definitely bringing up the members of his staff as, this ain't just my decision, but I know he's feeling the pressure, and that's the only way we're able to see B-ball Paul. And I do think you were right. I think it's been more of a collaborative effort in the last week or so.
And he also said, if you go with Paul against big guys, he'll get into foul trouble, which could swing a playoff game. So Doc Rivers thinks that a backup center getting into foul trouble will swing a playoff game. The 8 minutes that a backup center is going to play. And also, if he gets into foul trouble, okay, then go to your best friend, DeAndre Jordan or whoever. Like, I don't understand what the actual problem is here. Play the dude. He's aggressive. He's athletic. Yeah, he's going to foul. Also, he hasn't had time to learn the NBA game and the speed yet because he never played a guy. So you throw him out there twice a year and he fouls 6 people in 3 minutes. That's just something he has to get used to. I just I don't want to see DeAndre Jordan against this team. They're going to out-rebound us by 50. You have to play B-ball Paul.
Shout out to Jersey Boy with the $5 super chat. He said, what's going on, y'all? Loving the chat. We have more talent and should win this series. Doc can't be out-coached by Nurse. Hopefully he can't, but he can. Sixers in 5 or 6. That's super confident. Can't wait till Saturday. Let me ask you all. Give me something that you really think we can something that you think the Sixers can do well against them and something that they can do. Your biggest fear for both teams, like what we can do well. I can't even spit this out, to be honest. What I'm trying to say, give me something that we can exploit them on and something they can definitely exploit us on. Let's try to keep it as different as possible. Who wants to go first?
I feel like, well, one thing I'll exploit is they're going to, of course, they keep seeing people Raptors and whatever after KD bombed us out for our transition defense. I think I saw something said we're giving up, like we're allowing teams to score like 65% in transition, their field goal percentage. So I definitely think they're going to keep trying to run and gun us. But of course, like you said, I mean, it's the playoffs. Things are going to be slowed down, a lot more half-court offense. What we're going to have to exploit from the Raptors? Well, the Raptors, they don't really have that deep of a bench either. It's just that all their starters are really good and they're all really playmakers. Like we have so many holes in our starting lineup. Is Danny Green going to be consistent? If we start Matisse, the offense, but maybe like we're talking about foul trouble, maybe get them a little bit of foul trouble, have to lean onto their bench. And also the Raptors have a lot of young players too, like Scotty Barnes. He's been really good, but he's also still a rookie. We don't know what he's going to look like when he gets to the playoffs. He played at Florida State. That one season he was at Florida State, they didn't really do anything in the playoffs. It was a COVID year, but I don't know, maybe try to exploit their young players. I don't know if Fred VanVleet, like what he's going to be looking like because he's still nursing that injury. But maybe, I don't know, just knock down shots when you wide open. I mean, that's all it boils down to is just knock down shots if you wide open. You're going to be wide open because they're going to be swarming Embiid and James. Knock down shots.
James has to knock down shots, man. James, he's been... he did it in
he
the
don't want to
game
catch
too.
and shoot. He's second guessing himself heavy, bro. He waits for mad long before he even decides to shoot, even if he does.
I think in those first couple of games, people were doubling Joel, of course, and teams doubled James Harden just because he's James Harden. I think slowly teams are stopping that strategy. And against Toronto, it's kind of like just leave him one-on-one. He can't get past any of these guys on there. So we can't ISO with James against this team at all. There has to be strategy. There has to be pick and roll from the top and other things going on, because if we end up in the situation in the fourth quarter where it's just everybody's standing watching James dribble, he ain't getting past any of those dudes. I mean, he ends up throwing the ball off the bottom of the backboard. It doesn't look good, But to answer your question, I think like just youth, just the Toronto's, we have more star power. And I think at the end of the day, even if they stretch it to a 6 or 7 game series, we will win because we have Joel Embiid commanding double, triple teams. And Joel's going to be a different animal. I think honestly, Joel has gotten really good at load managing himself during games. A lot of the reason he doesn't have the fancy advanced analytics that some other players have in the NBA is because he takes entire quarters off defensively, and you could see it in this. Sometimes in the second quarter, he's just standing there watching guys do layups. I really think he conserves his energy. I think you're going to see a different animal from Joel Embiid, but this Toronto Raptors team is definitely one of the toughest matchups in the Eastern Conference for us, just because they have exactly what we lack, which is length, athleticism, speed, transition, defense, all that stuff. But I think we pull it out because they're a bunch of young guys, and we got the star power. Them on the other side, they will play great defense against us. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of you guys. I think Siakam and Van Fleet are going to get what they get every single game. The thing that I think is going to be different about this matchup that happened in the regular season game is those bench players and those younger guys are not going to hit the shots that they hit in that game. The biggest thing for the Sixers, even when Joel is in, they're going to need to crash the boards. They were all just kind of standing around hoping that Joel Embiid would get the rebound, which he usually does. But the thing is, when Joel Embiid's not down on the block, he's not always crashing. So Harden has to crash. Tyrese has to crash. They just have to be more aggressive, and I think that's going to happen. And also, Joel Embiid needs to be on the block more for the pure fact that the little guards are going to come down there. Siakam, Van Vliet, try to swipe the ball. They're going to foul him, and they're going to get into foul trouble. I know he loves to play on the perimeter and do everything because he can, but the main source is going to be trying to get those guys in foul trouble because if they do, they're gone, and that's an easy win for the Sixers.
Yeah, I agree there for the simple fact that, again, let me just say this. Precious Achiuwa is going back to the bench. And I didn't think I would ever have to say this, but he's been harassing us. Every game he's played, he gets 20 points, and he plays probably the best defense, just in these last 2 games we played. He's all over the place. Precious Achiuwa, I didn't think I would have to say that. But because if OG Anunoby comes back and Fred VanVleet comes back, that's going to send Precious to the bench. He'll probably be the 6th man, of course. It's going to be interesting to see how many minutes they give him, but he's been one of the guys who's been flustering the James Harden, going over there to help out on Embiid. But as Kayla said, get him to the block because, again, DJ's right. All their guys are 6'7", but that's where they cap out 6'7", 6'9". Kem Birch is the guy they played against us because the rotation is injured. He might not get that many minutes, and he's big, but he's not strong enough. So Embiid, once he's like certain teams that when Embiid's deep on, just count the bucket. Don't even watch. Close your eyes because it is what it is. And that's the one team where he don't got to flail his hands because he don't have to do the swipe through and all that. He's just outpowers them, and he gets the traditional fouls against the Toronto Raptors. And we're going to need him to shoot his 80+% from the free throw line. But I agree with all you guys on the deficiencies. Without even saying Doc, just keeping it about the players. I think, the hustle play transition has been poor. I will say this, though, to give Danny Green credit. The last couple games that he's been playing, he's helping out on the boards. My man is crashing. You see him tipping it out there. I'm just going to put this out there again, and I'm not no Danny Green fan. I just think that if he's big, if we get points or good minutes from him, then I think it really just makes everybody's job a little bit easier. I think that's going to draw less double teams on Embiid if the corner three's falling. But we didn't have Danny Green last year too. I know Ben Simmons and Doc Rivers were the main reason we lost that, but Danny Green wasn't there. And although, I talk about Danny Green, of course, green light, sometimes it's a long red, but when it turns green, he can let him loose, and that can change the complexion. It can change how the Raptors defend us. And if you give Embiid if Embiid gets the ball against the Raptors and they're not doubling in the first 2 seconds, it's probably over. So I think all that comes to play. Real quick, shout out to Mike with the $5 super chat. He said his attitude at the press conference talking about good old Doc was if he discovered calcium and Derek Bonner asked him what's 2 + 2. I hear you on that.
But
I really I want to comment on that because I could make a 2-hour video about Doc Rivers. It really rubs me the wrong way because reporters are just doing their job, bro. And if Doc is walking up to a podium, what questions do you think they're going to ask you? That's the question they're supposed to ask you. That's that was the obvious storyline of the game. Of course they're going to ask you that. And he's mad right away, right when he hears the question. How dare you ask me that? Blows my mind.
Well, I think he sees all these lists that he's top this and top that. And I think, he really buys into it. Look, at the end of the day, you got Pop.
For so long. You've been around for so long. You have all them wins. Like,
it's all the ego. He's a really high ego for sure.
But no, I agree. Danny Green, we need, and I'm feeling like good because Danny Green is coming in hot. I feel like Tobias Harris towards the last 20 games, last 10 games, Tobias Harris has been really getting hot. So we have that momentum. But like you said, we're going to need Spurs, Danny Green, and we're going to need Houston, James Harden to come out. We're going to need Celtics, Doc Rivers. the Raptors are just way too high on themselves right now. So I just feel like we just got to silence the Raptors because.
Yeah, to me, it's like, listen, I know there's a lot of Raptors fans in the chat, and they're not going to like this, but a Raptors team where they're at right now, they don't have a Kawhi Leonard. They don't have a solidified superstar. Siakam could be that, and maybe he's on his way to being that. But you have a team full of players that are just sharing the ball and a lot of energy. And to me, it's like a Final Four team that takes out a couple of big ones in the first and second round. They're not winning the national title. Like, eventually they come down to earth, and it's Kentucky versus Kansas and Duke or whatever. So that's where I see the Raptors right now. So they're going to give you trouble, but I think at the end of the day, the better team is going to win.
And we have the best player on the court at the toughest position. Like, that's why I'm saying we have to. I love Embiid's confidence on the perimeter. But Embiid, we need you to be down low in the paint. Get those guys in foul trouble. Nobody can guard Embiid. He can get what he wants.
Do you guys think that when I talked about Joel load managing himself during games towards the end of the season, do you think maybe that's a strategy? Like, listen, just go out there for the last couple games, jog around, shoot some threes, hit some jumpers. Don't go too hard. And then in the playoffs, we're going to see him really under the basket. Like,
yeah.
I
think so. I don't know if you guys listened to JJ Redick's podcast with him, but absolutely phenomenal. And he kind of talked about that, and he just touched on, listen, I can be super physical, but sometimes I choose not to because I'm trying to make sure that I can stay healthy and not put myself in positions to get hurt or tire me out. But this is the playoffs. And guess what? If Joel Embiid doesn't win the MVP and he's on All-NBA second team, the NBA is going to have to watch out because there's going to be a fire lit under him. He is going to get completely robbed, and he knows that he deserves this. There's a lot of things going his way, and he already made that comment about, I don't know what else I can do. What else he can do is bring this team to a championship. I don't know if they'll go that far, but if anybody can do it, it's going to be under Joel.
But the sad thing is, it's not about Joel. It's about the dudes around Joel. And that's not Giannis. Like, the sad thing is, like, we know what Joel can do and what he will do. Like, we don't even have to question. These other teams, like the Bucks, like I keep saying, Giannis's others could have their own team and make the play-in. Like, he's surrounded by elite role play. I wouldn't even call them dudes others or role players. Like, them dudes, Drew, Middleton.
He made the All-Star game. Chris Middleton made the All-Star game.
Exactly. Middleton, the other guy, Bobby Portis. They could have their own team. Them three, the best players, and they'll be in the play-in. We just don't. Embiid just sadly isn't graced with that. Like, just, it's all going to be on James Harden.
And if you remember last year, Chris Middleton literally carried the Bucks through that first round because Giannis wasn't playing well. So the thing is, I know everybody's high and low on James Harden, but unfortunately, we know Harden's history in the playoffs. Will he be better than Ben Simmons offensively? Probably, but is he going to give us 30 points a night? Probably not. And that's why I look to a guy like Tobias Harris, because I think Harris can be that guy, and I think he needs to be that guy, because when he's off, he's one of the worst players on the court. But when he's on, watch out.
How do you guys feel about the Sixers? You know, we draw a lot of fouls, whether it's Embiid, doing it. I think Embiid has been doing it more the right way. The only thing I think that, they might change eventually is the swipe through he does, which is a smart move. If you got your hand on him, he can pull that mid-range. It's not like he's not about that life anyways. But in the playoffs, they start to hold the whistle a little bit. And Harden, he really baiting for a foul, as much as I'm trying to build Harden up, because I do think he's going to play better. I mean, you can't play worse than what he's done down the stretch. I'm not saying if we get, and again, the first 5 games of Harden, it wasn't Houston Harden. It was still delivering, picking his poisons. He was still only shooting the ball 8, 9, 10, 11 times, but he was more efficient. He's been absolutely horrendous in the efficiency column. But how do you think they're going to treat us with foul calls in the playoffs, where they try to hold a whistle, trying to, it's more of a half court game and they try not to stop it as much. They try to let them go out there and play. You think that frustrates a team like the Sixers, who can, Joel Embiid alone can shoot 20 plus free throws?
I think it does, but I also think if you look at the past years in the playoffs, that Joel Embiid shoots more free throws in the playoffs and he averages more because he's legitimately getting fouled. I mean, he can't get hacked and they're going to keep the whistle silent. But this is the thing that a lot of people are going to see now that we're entering the playoffs. Joel Embiid, even if he doesn't have 20 free throws, he can still average 45 points a game. He's going to find a way to get to the rack. And he said, once again, I'll go back to this podcast. He says, when I don't get those foul calls, that makes me angrier. And when I go back on the offensive end, I'm going to completely dominate and show that physicality. So they're going to have to call the foul next time. Now, James Harden, I do worry about because if he misses a shot and tries to foul bait and throws his hands up, I'm going to freak out because I can't stand seeing that. And then he doesn't get back defensively. James Harden is going to have to figure something out. I think he's still trying to fit in and try to find his place in the chemistry. I think that in the playoffs, and this is what I'm hoping, he's not going to be as passive with the ball. I think he's going to take more shots. It's just a matter if they go down or not.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. I mean, I understand why other people are annoyed, seeing Embiid go to the line so much or seeing James go to the line so much. But I mean, if it's a foul, it's a freaking foul. And if they master that part of the game, it's in the rule book. So they master that part of the game. You can't be mad. I can see if the ref was calling something that was not a foul. But if he's drawing fouls, he's that big. There's times where Joel Embiid gets fouled and they don't blow the whistle just because they're saying, oh, he's so big, whatever, this little dude, that's not a foul for him. We got to get to the line, period. We got to get to the line. So, James, go ahead, do what you do. Embiid, try it, because we definitely need those free throw points, because that is a lot of Joel Embiid's points is from the free throw line.
I agree. Both of those guys have mastered the art of, I don't even call it foul baiting. I used to call it foul baiting when I didn't watch James Harden as intently as I do now, obviously. And he's mastered the art of getting the defender to foul him. He's baits the defender. A lot of, sometimes it's I get it. Technically it's a foul, but I think that's where the NBA is on it. And I think that's also why there's less foul calls in the playoffs, because the NBA as a product is entertainment. And they know in the playoffs, all of the casual fan, everybody, the ratings are so much higher. There's people that don't watch a Monday night game at the end of the season that are watching these playoff games. The NBA doesn't want 50 free throws in a basketball game. They just don't. Yeah. And they have two players, probably the two best in the entire league on the same team right now that can draw fouls like that. And I think the NBA gets to the point where they're just we don't know what to do besides stop calling it. Just don't call it. And I think they really stopped calling it. And when James does this little lean in, he gets under the defender's arm and lifts up and just throws the ball straight up in the air. Technically, yes, but no, we're not calling it anymore because we're tired of that. So he has to learn, especially as he declines in athleticism, which we could talk about. Simone said we need that Houston James Harden. That's long gone. James has to learn how to, and I think you were joking. I'm pretty sure you were joking.
If he can resurrect it,
he
has to learn. He has to. He has to
also
adapt
need
his
Boston's Glenn Rivers from Boston too. So she was just making an all-star lineup.
Right.
Facts. Well, Glenn Rivers in Boston was just 4 Hall of Famers. That's what that was. Any 4 of us could have coached that team to a championship. James has to adapt his game as he could. I think his basketball IQ, he could play a long time. He definitely has to adapt his game. He's still trying some of the things that he used to be able to do. That clearly it's you don't have that step right now. So he has to adapt his game.
Part of the foul baiting too, though, is when people make these claims on Joel Embiid, and you guys kind of touched on it, it's just basketball IQ, right? You watch it in the Raptors game, Joel Embiid, especially these younger players, because the Raptors have a younger team. So they're going to make these mistakes, and they're not going to know how to defend Joel Embiid. No matter how much tape you watch when you're in the game speed, it's completely different. Joel Embiid feels an arm on his arm. He's going to do the swipe through because he knows it's going to get called. Now, I don't think that's going to get called as much in the playoffs because they just don't call those little fouls during that time. But once again, these rookies and these players, these younger guys, are going to get in foul trouble with Joel Embiid, and he's going to go down and dominate if he doesn't get that foul call in the opposite end. So it's going to be interesting. I don't think they're going to call as much, but I think Joel's still going to go to the line at least 10 to 15 times a game.
Yeah, Joel definitely is going to go to the line. I'm more worried about Harden. And I do agree with what DJ said.
Yeah.
Though, what Harden, he makes the defense commit and then he figures it out. But I think sometimes you get a mindset that, he don't even look to the basket. He looks for the foul. And I think that's where Harden got to make the defender commit, but still go to get his. It's just looking really sloppy. And I think it's also part of his blow by and everything just looks a little bit down. But when you see him in the first quarter, and he's distributing the ball, that's when he's at his deadliest. It is hard. You can see he makes the extra pass almost every time. And although I want him to shoot it, when he does shoot it, it hasn't looked good. I just think I never realized that he didn't have no mid game until mid-range. I thought he had a little bit, right? Like when he was playing with Houston and even with the Nets, I thought he had somewhat of a mid-range, but he really doesn't. It's either a layup or a three. And it's not even a three. It's a step back. If he gets an open three, he'll wait for the defender to come here and be like, all right, now I'm about to do me. Let me dance a little bit. And I just don't understand a guy who can shoot the step back as good as he once could. He can't make the gimmies. You know what I mean? I just don't understand it.
Yeah. I think that mid-range game, though, is going to have to go to Tobias Harris. Obviously, Joel Embiid can hit the mid-range, but if you take Joel Embiid out of it, you talk about a supporting cast. Tobias is going to have to make those mid-range shots, and that's when you count on Tyrese Maxey, too. He can make those shots. He can knock down threes. I don't think you necessarily depend on him to be knocked down from three-point land, but those are the guys that you're going to have to look at to make those mid-range shots, or at least bring the defenders in to the elbow and then pass it out to Harden so he can be open. Unfortunately, you can't rely on a guy like Harden to do that. And every time he goes to the rack, nothing good ever happens. But I think you're going to have to look at other factors to knock down that mid-range game, especially when Joel's not in the game.
So,
I think Harden. Go ahead, Simone.
Go ahead. Oh no, because I was going to change the subject, but go ahead on that topic.
I think where James needs to make shots. He's losing the one-on-one drive to the basket ability against these 21-year-old kids that are just, he looks, that last game, he looked like he was 50 years old. He just, he's losing. If he can make threes, it's still a different game for him. His facilitating is great. But when he's 3 for 17, then it's like, well, what actually do you have? And then you might get to the point where the defense stops going over the screen. They might eventually be like, hey, we don't have to go over the screen. We can back up. Then we do have Ben Simmons 2.0,
Right.
So he just has to make shots.
For me, like the moment when I realized, okay, I'm like Harden, I'm good on you. The Suns, you getting guarded by Shamit. It's not like you getting locked down by 3 Raptors at one time. You scared to take Shamit to the rack. Like, why are you playing scared when you getting guarded by Landry Shamit? That's when I knew. I'm like, what's up? You real suspect. Like, it's Shamit. I'm pretty sure I could put a little move on him.
He's not physical. That's the issue. Harden's not physical. He doesn't have that mindset to go in for like the kill. And that's the issue. He just wants to step back and free. But when he doesn't make that, he's a very one-dimensional player.
How about that? How about that floater he's been doing now? That long, like, that's an ugly floater. Like, he made it.
His hand is on top of the ball when he does it. It doesn't even look like a floater.
It doesn't look good.
I was doing a play-by-play, and I just was like, I just froze for a second. I didn't know what to call the shot, and he's missing it too. Like, that used to be James Harden's game, right? He'll have a rim running center, and you either have to come guard him, who either float it or lob it up. He don't got the guy lobbing. I do like the 2-man game though, because Embiid is automatic at the free throw line and at the elbow. And if the defense is going to collapse like the Raptors do, you'll have that all game. Before we change the subject, shout out to the Raptor fan in here. He said Raptors for the win.
Friend. He's Canadian. He's fine.
Mr. 89 said Glenn is a Russell Westbrook with a ring. And I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah.
Abe Lincoln said, question for everyone. What needs to happen for y'all to consider this season a success? Shout out to the great people on the panel. Go ahead. Let's all answer that.
Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, absolutely. They have to get out of the second round. I said that last time. If they don't, it's a bust. A lot of changes have to happen in the offseason if they don't make it past the second round.
Yeah, I think a lot of changes are going to happen in the offseason because If we would have came back with the same roster as last year, I think I would have been like, we need to win a championship or this needs to be blown up. But just all the things that happen are so unfortunate, especially for Joel, because how many years of his career is he going to be like, okay, now I got to go through this. And this isn't I just so much happened this season that what would be a success? Yeah, getting past the second round would be a success. But I think my bar is a little bit lower because just changing players halfway through the season and trying to learn a whole new process or whatever. I use the word process, but past the second round. Either way, no matter what they went through this season, if they don't get out of the second round, a lot needs to change.
I co-sign with everybody. Now, of course, we get out the second round and we're in the East. That means we're probably playing some decent basketball because I don't think the East is a joke all through 1 through 8. However, that is what I think needs to be done to be successful. I agree with Eastwood. Daryl Morey is still gearing up.
Yeah.
I think, Harris is a guy who can find himself not on this team after the season, whether we go for another star, whether we get some depth, who knows?
No, he's going 100%. 100%. I'll bet money on it. Just the contract alone, you can't do it. The lack of depth, you can't have your books maxed out on a 16-point per game player.
You're right about that.
Anyway,
exactly.
Continue. I'm sorry.
But we haven't got out of the second round. Like the whole process, we've been stuck in the second round. So just getting out of there would be a success because that is what we officially made these moves for, to start to get out. I think, but in the East, of course, once we get there to the Eastern Conference, if we did, a loss there is still going to be frustrating because then we were playing good ball. We probably lost, blah, blah, blah. But we definitely got to get out of the second round. And it's not going to be easy. I think when you look at last year's path, like if this team with last year's path, I think no matter how we feel about Harden's age and 16 points per game Tobias, I think if we got the Wizards easy, and I think we looking at that Hawks team like a gentleman's sweep, just because the team is more geared that way. And so, but this year is different. So getting out of the second round last year is not equivalent to this year.
Right.
I mean,
I agree.
Our first round matchup is already way harder than our second round failure last year. So you do got to put that in perspective. But I do agree, man, I just got to get out that second round. It's just we've been trapped there.
So what team outside of the Raptors, because I mean, we know, what team do y'all think is the most dangerous in the East? Because we're talking about the Raptors, but if we're talking about getting out the second round, they're scary as sights.
Yeah.
Than just the Raptors.
The Bucks 100%. I'm terrified. The only teams I'm really terrified for are the Bucks and the Nets, to be honest, because I think the Nets just kind of outweigh us in terms of offensive production. And there's not really any way of defending the Nets. You kind of just have to go up to them with an offensive battle. But the Bucks have everything. They have defense, they have offense, they have a lot of depth as well. But other than that, I mean, you can beat the Heat, you can beat the Bulls, you can beat these other teams. You definitely can beat the Celtics. I think the Celtics just don't match up well with the Sixers at all. So those are the two teams that I would want to avoid if the Sixers were to get as far as we think they will.
Yeah, definitely for me, it's definitely the Bucks. Just like you said, the depth, the defense, scoring off the bench. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm not as scared of the Nets only because, I mean, yeah, Kevin Durant, but Kevin Durant's kind of trapped in the situation Joel Embiid is. Like, he don't know what kind of help he's going to get from his others every night.
Yeah.
And then, too, with the Nets have just been wildly inconsistent. Now, I know they can turn it on in the playoffs. And, I mean, the scariest thing about the Nets is, like, all those guys know how to win. Like, they're all, well, not all guys, Katie and Kevin Durant.
That's their whole team. That's their whole team.
Right. Yeah. They know how to win. They've been there before. But the net outside of KD and Kyrie, it's kind of like with the Sixers. You don't know what you're going to get from their others. And Kyrie has just been so inconsistent. Doesn't even look like he has the fuel. Like that game against the Pacers, like if they lost that game last night, I believe it was last night, they would have been the 9th seed. But they weren't playing like that. They blew a 20-point lead. Like, I don't know. They lost to the Hawks earlier, like 2 weeks ago, a game that that was like basically like a must win for them, for basically be out the play-in or be higher, and they just don't seem like they had the motivation. The Bucks, like you said, I'm not as scared as the Celtics because of the matchups. The Cavs, what's the Cavs? The Hawks ain't the same. The Heat, they a fluke in my opinion. And the Bulls, we've seen what happened with the Bulls. So I'm really just scared of the Bucks.
Yeah.
I would go with the Bucks too. The Celtics have, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, the wing scorers that are our kryptonite sometimes. But they lost a big defender that was crucial
Williams.
Robert Williams. Yeah. He was big time in the game where they really smacked us when they had a good strategy against Embiid in the paint. But I'm pretty sure that was before we had Harden on the floor on the team also. I haven't been scared of the Nets since they did the whole Kyrie Durant thing. They're too top heavy. We're top heavy, but I think they're even more top heavy. And if you get games where those guys are hot, they drop 50 apiece. They could still win 130 to 127. Like that's how the Nets are. I haven't been scared of the Nets at all. I don't really even care. There's going to be a game where they're both on and you're going to get beat and they're going to be like, oh my God. And ESPN's going to celebrate, for 2 days until the next game, they're not. I'm not scared of the Nets. The Bucks we actually matched up with well. If it wasn't for that Paul Millsap stretch,
right?
If it wasn't for that 8 minutes of Paul Millsap,
that's true.
We really did a good job against the Bucks several times this season. So honestly, the Toronto Raptors,
come back.
I feel like the Raptors are the worst matchup in the whole playoffs. I feel like if we survive this series, it might get easier. Actually, I don't know, but
well, we avoid the Bucks until the Eastern Conference Finals, where we at least meet the successful goal. I think. I agree. The Bucks is just when I look at a team, like if I'm not talking about the Sixers necessarily, I think the Bucks are the most complete team. But I agree with DJ. I think we match up against the Bucks. Like the NBA is weird, right? This team is the top seed. This team is the 4th seed, right? For some reason they don't match up well, but the 1 seed can beat 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 easily, but 4 gives them trouble. It's just how the roster is constructed, and I think Embiid and Giannis, when they play, you see that back and forth with them. I think we do match up well because, again, the Sixers are a streaky 3-point shooting team outside of that's what they want to be, right? Harden we want to stretch, we want to get Niang, we want to get Tobias going, Maxey shooting, we want to get Danny Green, and the same with the Bucks. They want Lopez and Middleton and Bobby Portis to be doing that while Middleton's working the mid game and Giannis is just doing everything Giannis does. So I think we match up really well. The Raptors are going to be tough. Let me ask you guys, against these Raptors, who do you think is the biggest problem? Do you think it's going to be Pascal Siakam, or do you think Fred VanVleet with the Sixers defense and how we do not stop guards? Like, look at Gary Trent Jr. dropped a 30 piece on us, and he was bad in the first quarter. He really did it in 2-3 quarters. He dropped 30 because he didn't really score much in the first. But who do you think we have to shuffle defense to, especially the games that Matisse is not there? Siakam, who does work mainly in the paint, where you can say, hey, Joe, time to turn up on defense. As DJ said, sometimes he takes a couple quarters off and all that because we were waiting for this moment. He had to be here because we only go as far as Joel Embiid. Are you worried about Siakam or Fred VanVleet more? The whole series, not just a 1-game sample size.
Siakam, in my opinion. I would say that just because I think that Tobias can go out on VanVleet, Danny Green can go out on VanVleet on the road, and I think Matisse can lock him down, and I think their minutes are going to match, and that's why I kind of mentioned maybe Matisse in that starting lineup because I think you need to have a guard on guard there. Siakam is just too shifty sometimes for Joel, and that's what bothers me because he's not really that center. He's more of that power forward, and he can do a lot that Joel kind of jumps up and then loses him, and then there's literally nobody else to defend him. And then if Siakam's playing out on the perimeter, there's nobody in the paint, and then something bad happens. So in my opinion, it's Siakam.
Yeah, and then too, Fred VanVleet, he's been hurt for so long, and coming in this series, who even knows what he's going to be like. But Siakam, he's just been on a little quiet tear lately. Like I said about the hot hand, he's coming in hot. And then Siakam, like you said, he just looks so naturally athletic. Like he doesn't even look like he's working or if it's a sweat. It just looks too easy for him right now.
Yeah, Siakam's a tough matchup for anybody. But I think the Raptors, they have us 3-1 in the season series, and really just what sticks in my mind is some of these players playing way above. It feels like this happens against the Sixers. So, we got Precious Achiuwa doing heat checks in the third quarter. Like, this guy dribbled down the floor and shot it from 30 feet. Like, what? So those when I talk about they're going to come down to earth at some point, they could stretch the series, but you're not going to, these guys aren't going to shoot the lights out like they were. They might get one game like that. So I really think it's the guys around Van Vliet and Siakam that are, you should be. Are they going to be that, or are they going to come back down to earth? And I think eventually it'll come down to just the fact that they have Siakam and a bunch of guys. Bunch of hard playing tough dudes, but not guys that are going to drop 30 on us.
It's like the Hawks last year. Like, the Hawks came really hot. Trae Young was just on the tear really hot. And I mean, Trae Young is proven. Like, he's been doing this every night this season. Like, Trae Young is for real. But them other guys around him, like, can't even remember Mohawk dude, can't even remember their names.
Yeah, Kevin Herter, whatever his name is.
Kevin Herter, he's been wild.
Gallinari.
I think that's his name. Gallinari, he had the mohawk.
Yeah.
They came in hot, and like you said, it's like a Cinderella team, and they were playing well above themselves. You're gonna have to.
Toronto's that team now, though. Toronto's been the best team since the All-Star break.
No, they have. But remember, the Hawks started off sorry last season, and then it was the All-Star break. They turned it up. Like, I think they went in the All-Star break below 500.
They were like,
Then they turned it up, and then, they came in hot, took down Julius Randle and the Fluke Knicks, because come on now.
Yeah.
And they came into our series extra hot. So I feel like I don't know.
Yeah, we can't hang out and let it go to 7 games. Now that I listened to myself and what I just said at the same time, we can't let it go 7 games, because in game 7, you might get that 27 points from Kevin Herter. You might get that 30 points from Precious Achiuwa. So they gotta put it away before it goes there, because you just don't know against the Sixers what player's gonna have a game that's above just a little bit, just feels a little bit above their normal. They don't average 30.
Yeah, and it's normally guards. That's why I think really hurts us. Shout out to JB with the $2 super chat. He said, "Fire Doc and hire homegrown coach Don Staley." But
I would love that.
I agree in a sense of it's the guards. I think Pascal is definitely the guy you got a game plan for. But, the guys who can silently kill us is the Fred VanVleet. And not really him silent, because we know he's a second man on that team. But a guy like Gary Trent Jr. And again, I don't know what Precious Achiuwa has against us, but he's been balling these last couple games. It's on the defensive side. He's been killing it. All in all, I think, we're going to have to attack early. We're going to have to win our home games. We've been bad at home this season compared to on the road, but now we're a little handicap on the road. It's going to be tough, but I do. Let's get in this before we end it. We reaching around an hour. If you had to come out there and say who wins and what's your final series prediction, what do you say?
Well, I never predict against my team. Okay, so even when we were playing Eagles Bucks, I gotta predict against my team. Because
no, you didn't do that. You didn't do that.
Like,
now, the Eagles had no chance. Mike remembers me. I was like, the Eagles are about to get smoked.
He did.
Anyway, look, see when I'm talking to my mama, but me on here, you know what?
I feel you.
Gotta find a chance. Now, my thing is, I'm really pissed at the Hawks, because I feel like the Hawks, them coming back we had all those cushion leads. Them coming back really just tainted us. Like, these other fan bases have the confidence now when they're playing against us. And then even this season, up against the Bucks, up against the Suns, really good teams. Like, those shouldn't be bad. Like, a loss against the Suns is not a bad loss. A loss against the Bucks isn't a bad loss. What made it bad was that we blew leads. Like, we could have had the win. And I think the Hawks doing that to us really tainted us. And it has these other teams. We was up against the Raptors last time. Teams like the Raptors think, the lead ain't nothing to them, especially with Doc Rivers. You know what I mean? Like, they have the confidence. They've seen us blow big leads. They've seen Doc blow big leads. But all that aside, we have the best player on the court in Joel Embiid. Like, we got the best player. We got if you're playing spades, we got the big joker. Okay? But
we can't be saying Joker. We got the MVP.
Yeah.
You can't use the word Joker, though, because the MVP hasn't been announced yet.
We have the big wild card. No, look, we the big Joker. He the little Joker in Denver.
I hear you.
we had the best player. So if all in all, at the end of the day, we had the best player that we believe in. We got the MVP on our team for a reason. I'm not betting against Joel Embiid. Now, will his knees and his back hold up for the second round? I don't know. But he is not getting embarrassed by the Raptors in the first round.
So what do you got though?
Sixers and 6.
Sixers and 6.
If we go to 7, they're gonna be 2. I don't trust us in 7. Not after the Hawks.
No. I don't think they're going to go 7. I would say 5 or 6 for Sixers. I think not having Matisse Thybulle is going to hurt them, and kind of what we mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, that they're not going to be able to kind of get in a rhythm because they're going to have Matisse Thybulle for a few games, then not have him, and then have him again. So I'll go confidence, and I'll say Sixers in 5. Very confident, but I think that Joel Embiid is going to be on another level, and I think James Harden is going to be a little bit more aggressive. I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Sixers in 6. There's gonna be a couple of ugly ones that the city of Philadelphia is gonna have a meltdown over. There's gonna be a couple of bad ones. But at the end of the day, they don't have not a lot of people have an answer for Joel Embiid, but they don't have an answer for Joel. We're going to see a different version of Joel. He's going to be dominating in the paint a lot more than he was, especially toward the end of the regular season, where again I feel like he was just out there jogging around shooting jump shots. I think you're going to see a different animal from Embiid. And Maxey's going to be big time. Maxey's going to be big time. I really think he is. And honestly, like Harden, if he can just not shoot 3 for 20, if he can just give us 35% from 3, keep stretching the defense, keep spacing the floor. I'd probably obviously I'll take Embiid over anyone on that team. I'd probably take Maxey over anyone on that team right now. I'm sorry. Raptors fans in the chat, I apologize for the Siakam shade, but we got the better players, and Sixers in 6.
Yeah, I like 6 too. I think 7 brings back. I think 7, knowing who we have on a team again, and I'm not trying to throw shade at Harden, but it's his closing games where he's been bad. If you look at him overall in the playoffs, he's not that bad. It's the closing games where he struggles, and same with Doc Rivers. I'm gonna go Sixers in 6. I believe there's nobody that can physically handle Joel Embiid down low. Again, we have to have the mindset to play Joel Embiid on the block more, down in the paint. I think Maxey has to be involved. Who gets them to that way? James Harden he ain't telling them to shoot at halftime no more. James Harden looking a little, he trying to get his own shot. But I agree with DJ in the sense of, I think Harden, when he first got here, was so smooth and he was picking his shots. And I kept saying, Harden, be more aggressive. No. Now I'm telling Harden to play in the flow of the offense. I think if he plays in the flow of the offense and we just, guard the paint, I think we'll be all right. It depends if Doc starts doing like the early DJs and stuff. I believe the Sixers have the overall talent, and I believe guys like Danny Green, Niang, you're going to have the game where we shoot 27% from 3 and we lose by 11. But I think you're going to see at least the amount of games we need where we're shooting that, consistent 38, 42%. And you will get a game where the Sixers hit that halftime and we're shooting 55% from the 3-point line and we got that lead, and hopefully they come back and we still win by 6 or something like that. I just think that the pressure's all on the Sixers. I think the Raptors, again, they won a championship a couple years ago. They lose Kawhi and Kyle Lowry, and they're back fighting again. So you got to credit that organization from the top to Nick Nurse and to their development. And they're deeper. They're way deeper than us. But I just think that to beat Joel Embiid 4 times after whatever MVP results happen, to beat Embiid 4 times, 2 on his home court with his best season in front of him, I don't think it's going to happen. And I think everybody's going to have to play their game. But as DJ, I won't put him as the best on the Raptors, but Maxey's going to really open eyes this playoffs. I really believe he's going to open eyes, and he's going to be in the conversation for why didn't he get included for most improved player? Because if you look at what he did last year compared to this year, last year Doc played him like 6 minutes. Now he's going to be one of the guys who gets 40 plus minutes. It's as simple as that.
He's big time. His confidence has been off the charts lately. And I was watching the chat when I said that. Remember it. I'm going to double down. I'm doubling down. I'm taking Maxey over any player on the Raptors. Watch it happen in his playoffs. You come right back to this video. Be sure. Keep like they say, keep that same energy. Come right back to this video. I'm taking Maxey over anyone on the Raptors.
I love it.
It's
I
big
love it.
time.
Shout out to JP. He said, "Great podcast, guys. North Philly loves you. Keep
Appreciate
repping." All right. With that being said, shout out to everybody in the chat. We got like almost 700 combined. Again, we are live on 3 channels. Simone with the Spizzorts. Let me just rep it the way she says it. Running Back Philly and the Philly Talk podcast. And definitely check out Kayla on Twitter. She's always talking Sixers. But yeah, what you guys got anything you want to end with before we get up out of here?
I got a bold prediction.
I like it.
No matter how far the Sixers go this season, even a ring, Doc Rivers is gone. Because
that's not a bold prediction. That's common
even
sense.
a ring. When
that's
does
pretty
happen,
bold
though?
if he said he won a ring and gets fired.
Oh, yeah. He said he won a ring. I missed over that.
Yeah. Even if the Sixers win a championship this season, Doc is gone. And I think that because I think Doc wants to go to LA. I think for some reason the Lakers want Doc Rivers. I don't know why. But when that rumor came out, I was like, there has to be some kind of
mutual, right? You're saying like it's a
mutual smoke here. Yeah, I think they're gonna come to like a mutual agreement. Like, all right, you know
really
what I mean?
Think so?
Oh yeah, I don't think the Sixers organization wants him anymore. I don't, and I don't
But
think
why
winning
does
a
want him.
championship.
somebody else want him? That's what I don't understand. Like,
I don't know.
how does he keep a job?
It's because the NBA is close too, and like once you're embedded, they just keep giving you a multitude of chances.
Right.
So, but I agree with DJ. Not saying if we win. I mean, I hope we win, but I can see it. No matter, even if the Sixers are forcing the issue, they're going to give Doc his due by saying like Doc's stepping down. They're not going to come out and say he's fired.
Yeah.
They're going to make it like Doc is moving on. Because he did contemplate in taking some time off before coming to the Sixers. Maybe he thought he wasn't going to get a job, and then he was like, "Ooh, someone's going to give me a job. Let me go get that before they realize I'm a fraud," as DJ would say. But this could be his thing. It's not a firing. It's I want to go back to LA where blah 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 blah.
And I think that I didn't have faith in the Sixers organization before Daryl Morey came in here because the ownership group has no clue what they're doing. They probably don't even know how many players are on a court in a basketball game. They're just guys that purchase the team, and like they have no idea. So they, the Brett Brown extension, all that stuff, the Elton Brand stuff, all that stuff was ownership. But with Daryl Morey in there, I think he really knows the game, and I that's what I think is going to happen.
I think even if they want Doc Rivers back, if they were to win a ring, which would be fantastic, I think Doc would say, I got another ring and I'm going to go try it somewhere else. And I think eventually Doc wants to settle and he wants to be in a place that is not Philadelphia, try to have more of a life. You know what I mean? A lot of players like to go to the West Coast for those kinds of reasons. And who knows, is River maybe towards the end of his career where he would rather have that setting like a California rather than Philadelphia? I think either way Rivers is gone this year, whether it's the Sixers doing or his own. Right.
That's a great point because I think I don't think Doc Rivers can handle Philadelphia sports.
No.
Like what team, if somebody could find another basketball team that chanted the name of a G League backup center in the middle of a game, that's only Philadelphia. Yep. Doc needs to go somewhere where all the fans show up halfway through the second quarter. It's just a bunch of celebrities hanging out. Right. Nobody really cares that much. Yeah.
And the media, the Philly media is tough.
Oh,
you can't handle that. Keith Pompey be having him shaking.
I love it. Right when I hear his voice, I'm like, yeah, it's Keith. Let's go. I want to hear your question.
Yeah, well, that's a bold take, but I do agree. Who has a team that was competing for the 1 seed at the time, 2 seed, get a report that comes out saying Doc's a potential candidate? Like, I agree there's some shape shift in there where, like, between Sam Cassell, who knows who the replacement is, but I think it's like more of a mutual part in ways where, if we flame out, well, that's the excuse. Well, I think Doc's also protecting himself where he's like, I'm stepping down, whether we flame out or we go out. We lose game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals, and he's like, I'm gonna go, I'm out of here. I'm going to LA. Or we lose in the first round. I was still out. Didn't you see the reports? What are you talking about? I didn't get fired. You know what I mean? Like, that's how Doc gonna want to be. If he can't handle the media, he don't want to be called fired. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think being fired from the Clippers almost want to make him take time off. And when he got the offer that Philly gave him, he rushed back in, but he shouldn't. He wasn't ready. He's done.
I think also that they will be looking at a future. They can look at this staff right here and say we could have one of these guys for 10 years. Like, is that Doc Rivers? No, you're not. No, Doc Rivers is not going to coach for that long. So if you were looking at somebody like Sam Cassell and you think he has that ability, you'd be like, listen, Doc, you know what I mean? You feel like retiring today or what? Like, we got some other things here behind you. If you want to just go ahead and get out the door, that'd be great.
Be with your family.
I would love Jay Wright, but I know he'll never leave Villanova. But that's somebody, even after Brett Brown got fired, I was like, please come to the NBA because I think you'd be so good. But I just think Doc's at that age where being in a city like Philly is just not it. Philly is one of the hardest cities to play in, one of the hardest cities to coach in. The fans, us, were crazy about sports. And I just think right now, at his age, as you mentioned before, him not even knowing if he wanted to come back to coaching right away, maybe just not for him.
That's true. And again, we're not the LA fans. You can't say things and we'll be like, oh, yeah, you might be right. And then maybe think about it later. No, we know it's bogus. And it's been too many things that he's been repeated. And then he does exactly what he said he wasn't going to do. He's been made a fool too many times. And I agree. I think the leak and reports, I was listening to the John Kincaid's show and he said, not for sure or nothing like that. But he said that I forgot the exact words. I don't want to quote him. But that it was a leak from somewhere on Doc's side. It wasn't a Sixer leak. So it's Doc preparing his getaway in a sense that we probably might burn. If we burn, I'm going to be fired. So let me act like I was already making my move. It is what it is.
Yeah.
That's not a bad prediction.
But hopefully we don't crash and burn because, James Harden is a guy who has a player option. Who we could be in this really sticky situation where it's like we get rid of Tobias, Harden doesn't come back. It's not that sticky if you're gonna have all this money to build around Embiid and Maxey. But it's gonna be this offseason is gonna be crazy regardless. But even worse if we really do not beat the Raptors. And although they're a good team, we all got them in 6, Kayla in 5. So we're gonna be watching.
Confident.
It's gonna be. We gotta keep Embiid happy.
Yeah. I think the series too, I don't know if you guys remember, was it 2017 or 18, the Heat in the first round, even though the Heat weren't the most talented team, it was the most physical series the Sixers had in a while. This is going to be the Raptors, and they have more talent than that team. So.
Facts.
Yeah. With that being said, any more bold takes before we get out of here?
I just wish we could fast forward to Saturday.
Me too. The anticipation,
even today, just one day without no basketball, nothing on TV.
I know it's gonna be a long week, week. DJ, I saw you on Twitter taking a DJ gig off to watch the Sixers. You say, better not disappoint me on game 1.
Yeah, have to, can't do it, have to, can't do anything. Why does it have to be a Saturday? But I can't do anything.
Yeah, right.
Sixers first playoff game, I gotta be there.
I hear that. With that being said, again, I go by Philly Mike. Simone with the sports, running back Philly, DJ Eastwood, Kayla. Check us out on all platforms, Twitter. Try to find us. You'll find us. And YouTube. And until next time, we out. Peace.